At first we see John Locke, who is a sales assistant in the toy department. A woman looks at him carefully. She ended up asking clearly not what she wanted. In the present, John and Boone do not give up trying to open the hatch. As he works, the guy asks Locke to tell him something about himself, but he claims that his life story is boring. They never managed to break the glass of the hatch. When John got the blade in his leg, he didn't even feel it. In the evening he treated the wound and began to pierce the skin on his legs with pins, and then he put hot coals to it. Even now John felt no pain. The next day they built a new trebuchet to break the glass. John recalls seeing that woman again. He decided to catch up with her, but was hit by a car. That didn't stop him, however. Finally, he stopped the woman and demanded an explanation. It turned out to be his mother. They decided to talk at the cafe. Since John had grown up in an orphanage and did not know his parents, he was very surprised. The woman told him she found him to say something. According to her, John is special and has a special mission. The woman also claimed that he was conceived immaculately. Sawyer asked Sun what plant might help with the headaches. After learning about it from Sun, Kate asked Jack what the constant headaches might mean. However, the doctor has a lot of work to do. He doesn't care about Sawyer. Meanwhile, Boone says it's useless and they won't be able to open the hatch anyway. But according to John, the island will help them or give them a sign. Suddenly they see a falling plane in the sky. Locke began to have visions of Boone whispering Teresa's name. The next moment John realized with horror that he was back in a wheelchair. It was just a nightmare dream. Early in the morning, John woke Boone up and told him to follow him. At this time he recalls how he decided to find out about his mother, whose name is Emily Annabeth Locke. She had been in a mental institution several times. A private detective recommends that John not look for his father, but he is determined. Soon John paid a visit to the home of his wealthy father, Anthony Cooper. It turned out that Emily had first concealed her pregnancy from Anthony and then lied about giving the baby up for adoption. Like John, Anthony has no family. The father invited his son to go hunting with him, and he gladly agreed. In the present, Locke, remembering his dream and the falling plane, realizes where they must now follow. Boone is skeptical, but when Locke mentions Teresa, he agrees to go. Michael and Jean continue to build the raft. Surprisingly, they work well together. Sawyer is still suffering from headaches, and Jack decides to ask him if everything is in order. Sawyer is worried because his uncle had a brain tumor. As he makes his way through the jungle, Boone tries to find out from John how he knew about Teresa. Suddenly Locke falls, but refuses help. On a tree they see a cross and then human remains. John recalls coming to see his father. He is very sick. He has kidney failure. Although Anthony has been on the waiting list for a transplant for a long time, there is little chance, because he is very old. Apparently, the body belonged to a priest. He had Nigerian money and a gun in his pocket. Sawyer couldn't take the pain anymore, and Kate made him go to Jack. He ran a couple of tests and started purposely asking very uncomfortable questions to get under his skin. Eventually the doctor concluded that Sawyer needed glasses. It was getting harder and harder for John to walk. Boone tried to persuade him to return to camp, and then he confessed that he had been paralyzed for the past 4 years. This island had given him back his ability to walk, but now for some reason it was taking it away. They must open the hatch at all costs, for that is what the island wants. In the past, father and son spend their time hunting. Anthony believes that fate itself brought them together right now. Helping John to walk, Boone told him that Teresa was his babysitter. As a 6-year-old boy, Boone was constantly cranky and chasing her back and forth. One day she tripped, fell down the stairs, and died. Suddenly Locke noticed the very plane from his dream. Boone has to climb up, sneak inside, and see what's in there. John recalls deciding to give one of his kidneys to his father. They were both being prepared for surgery. Since Sawyer reads a lot, he became farsighted, and Jack brought him some glasses he found on the passengers. Saeed helped to solder the frame. Though it looked ridiculous, Sawyer could see very well now. Meanwhile, Boone climbed up the slope and entered the plane, which began to stagger. Locke couldn't just sit still, and yet he managed to get to his feet. Boone found statuettes with banned substances inside the plane. John didn't understand why the island had brought them here, and Boone saw the radio. The plane tilted. John told Boone to get out of there, but he tried to get through to someone. Suddenly he got an answer and the plane crashed down. John immediately ran to his friend's aid. Boone was badly wounded, and Locke carried him on his shoulder. Kate thanked Jack for helping Sawyer in spite of his antics. Suddenly John brought wounded Boone, who was in a very serious condition. Locke suddenly disappeared, sinking back into his memories. When he awoke from the anesthesia, his father was not there. The nurse reported that Mr. Cooper had gone home, without saying that John is his son. Suddenly the mother showed up and told the truth. It turned out that Anthony had paid her to meet her son. The father had made up the whole story to get a kidney. John didn't want to believe it. Having recovered from the operation, Locke tried to see his father, but he would not let him on the doorstep. On the way back, he could not hold back his tears. In the present, John cries too, not understanding why he is going through this ordeal. Suddenly a light came on inside the hatch. Jack tries to save Boone, and the other passengers help him. Hugo almost faints, but pulls himself together. Suddenly Boone begins to choke, and Jack gives him a tracheotomy, remembering how he helped his friend tie a bow tie. Preparations for Jack's wedding are in full swing. In the present, the doctor continues to resuscitate Boone, promising him that he will save him. Meanwhile on the beach, Claire looks worried and asks how much longer they will be building the raft. A frightened Kate arrives and asks Sawyer to give her all the alcohol. At the camp, Jack stitches up Boone's chest wound. A blood transfusion needs to be done, but it is unclear how it can be accomplished. When Sun replaces him briefly, Jack remembers his wedding rehearsal. His bride is giving a speech. 2 years ago she had broken her back in an accident. The doctors said there was no hope. But Jack performed a miracle and healed her. In the present, Jack sets a fracture in Boone's leg. It is very painful, and Hugo hears screams. At that time Kate, who was running at full speed, stumbles, and then she hears moans. It turned out that Claire had gone into labor. Kate started calling for help. Jean heard her and ran into the jungle. Kate tried to tell him to bring Jack. Sun, along with the doctor, tried to find out what Boone's blood type was. Despite the shock, Boone was able to answer. Jack told Sun to ask the passengers who had blood type B negative and also to find Shannon. She was having a good time with Saeed in the meantime. Sun brought a sea urchin, whose needles can be used for blood transfusions. Since there is no suitable donor, Jack decides to use his own blood, since the first blood type is universal. Jack remembers Sarah changing into her pajamas after the wedding rehearsal. They played the piano together. Jack is upset that his father never showed up. Jean came running into the camp. Sun translates from Korean into English that Claire is in labor. Since Jack can't be in 2 places at the same time, he explains to Charlie what to do. Claire is hysterical. Kate calms her down, and Boone begins to regain consciousness. He tells Jack about the plane and about the hatch he and John found in the jungle. He also kept calling for Shannon, who at this point told Saeed that her half-brother was in love with her. Charlie arrives and tells Kate that they will have to cope on their own. In the meantime, Jean tries to comfort Claire, who does not want the baby to be born on this island. A blood transfusion did not help. An exhausted Jack told Hugo to bring Michael here, remembering how his father had come to him. He was on a plane, so he arrived late. Jack tried to write his wedding vow, but he couldn't make it. He worries that he won't make a good husband for Sarah. Jack guessed that Locke was lying. Boone's injury wasn't from the fall, but from something pressing on him. He'd have to have his leg amputated, because that's where all the blood goes. There's no other way. Kate helps Claire give birth by comforting her. Charlie wants to get involved too, but Jean advises him not to get involved. At the camp, Sun tries to dissuade Jack from this venture, because in her opinion, it won't help Boone anyway. But the doctor can't let the patient die. Michael and Sun won't look at it, and Jack recalls his wedding day. Sarah said the words of the vow, and Jack confessed that he never managed to write the vow, for he is most afraid of failure. The most important thing is that he loves Sarah. In the present, Boone told Jack not to do it, for they both know that he cannot be helped. Boone asked Jack to let him die in peace. Jack is crying because he really can't do anything. Meanwhile, Claire in the jungle gave birth to a baby boy. Kate, Charlie, and Jean were very happy for her. Dying Boone wanted to say something to Shannon, but didn't have time. All the passengers came to see the newborn baby. Saeed and Shannon came back. Jack told her what had happened to her brother. The girl sobbed over his body. Jack too could not recover, and Kate came to support him. However, Jack was convinced that John Locke was involved in the boy's death, so he went looking for him.